From the Carson Student Athlete Center in the Schaefer Sports Hall of Fame here in Tempe, Arizona, it is Sun Devil Extra with Graham Rossini, presented by Spring Hill Suites, Phoenix, Scottsdale. And Graham, welcome back to the set. An exciting week for Sun Devil athletics, and certainly, you know, we'll talk football to get things going. It was the Big 12 conference opener for the Sun Devils last weekend in Lubbock, Texas, and a 30-22 final score. Texas Tech getting the win, the first loss of the year for Sun Devil football, dropping to 3-1. And certainly it was a game that, you know, really could have gone either way. It was a catch-up scenario for ASU after a slow start. A lot to learn from going forward, and that's kind of what Coach Dillingham touched on in his press conference a couple of days ago. But what were your kind of broad takeaways? Yeah,
I think it's like Coach mentioned, it's going to be part of the process. It's admittedly a little bit more frustrating as you get further away from the game and you start reliving some of the plays and some of the penalty yards or mental mistakes that we made that we wish we could have those back. But again, it's valuable for those kind of lessons and teaching moments to happen early in the season. It's all about what we do with it from here. And so taking advantage of that perspective, doing a lot of tape analysis, having the bye week to get some fresh legs, and then get back after it for Kansas next week.
It was almost a teaser of a first half, as you mentioned, a tough start with a few big penalties, and then you're down by 7 at the half. Really could have been 4. It was a late field goal for Texas Tech. But unfortunately, the second half, it just never really could get the tires going offensively. It seemed the defense buckled down, but ultimately you lose the game, but you only lost it by 1 score. And I know there are no such thing as moral victories, of course, but you know, there's still a lot you can take away from that ball game.
Yeah, contain the damage. You know, that was probably one of the key takeaways, is that game could have got out of hand in a minute out the gate. You know, spotting them 15 yards on the first play of the game and never really finding our footing in the first quarter. You know, we could have looked up and that game could have been 28-0, not just 14. And so contain the damage, get a chance to get back in there going into the half. We were kind of encouraged knowing that we get the ball back to start the second half and really, you know, hopefully found our stride, make those mid-game adjustments in the locker room. Didn't quite play out that way, but that's okay. You know, again, it's more about how the coaching staff can review that, attack it real time with the players, tighten up a few things, and just, you know, be better next time around.
Actually outgained Texas Tech in the game as well by over 40 yards. So it shows that it was pretty similar in terms of how that game played out. It was the 8 penalties. We've mentioned them a couple of times so far that were a major talking point throughout the fan base and also by Coach Dillingham as well. And, you know, I think it's interesting how he said it. It's a way to teach moving forward. And now you're into a bye week, of course. You can kind of refresh, take a deep breath. 4 games of the season already gone somehow.
Right, third of the season.
Right, it's unbelievable. And then you get back into Big 12 play for the first ever Big 12 home game next weekend. So kind of a deep breath, it seems like, and try to refocus.
Yeah, try to refocus. And again, some positives and some bright spots. And, you know, Scat continues to do what Scat does. And, you know, a number of the fans at Texas Tech, you know, that have not seen him up close, you know, he was the common comment after the game was like, that guy's a warrior. And the fact that he was out of the game, we were holding our breath on what that could mean. And then here comes Scat back on the field and a big touchdown late in the game. That's just who he is. And so he's continues to be a tone setter, continues to lead by example. He's a bulldog, and we're happy he's a Sun Devil.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Wild Scat, running wild in West Texas as well. And so certainly, plenty to talk about for football, but they have the week off. Plenty of other big things to talk about around Sun Devil athletics, including maybe the highest performing individual student athlete so far this year, Jose Ballester. Of course, we've talked about him winning the U.S. Amateur, and we had Coach Thurman on a couple of weeks ago. Well, he won the Illini Invitational. It was his first ever individual win collegiately over the weekend. I mean, it just goes to show this guy just is on a roll that is very tough to beat.
Yeah, he's been the tone setter for men's golf and for all of Sun Devil athletics, you know, dating back to the summer and what he did up in the Midwest, and, you know, on his way to the Spanish Open right now, kind of on the heels of a big win last weekend. And you know, our men's golf team continues to set a high bar for the rest of the athletics department. And Jose, just, man, what an unbelievable run that he's on right now. And having individual success, the way that fits into the team success, and, you know, that golf schedule that gets spread out. You know, not only is the golf season long, but then they get into their championship format in the spring, and one of the most challenging championships to win at an NCAA level. But certainly have to be excited with the way that we're starting out the gate.
That's a great point that many people don't think about if you don't follow golf. It goes from the very beginning of the school year to the very end.
Absolutely.
And it is a grind all the way through. If you think you've had a really good month and a half, Jose Ballester has you beat. Just to kind of summarize, won the U.S. Amateur, tied for second at the Sahili Players Championship, and then won the Illini Invitational over the weekend. So he remains to be red hot, a lot of fun on the golf course. Moving it over to volleyball now. Number 14 in the country, entering Big 12 play at 11-1, second highest ranked team in the Big 12 A lot of excitement over at Mullet Arena for Coach Van Neal and the volleyball team, and certainly a big weekend coming up. But let's talk about their non-conference with only one loss coming to Nebraska. Very impressive.
Yeah, one loss in 2 years. When you think back to the undefeated start that we had last season, and our only non-conference blemish in 2 years is against number 5 Nebraska at Nebraska. That's a pretty good way to set the tone going into the Big 12. And we're excited to see what Big 12 volleyball is all about. The Pac-12, well known for success and pedigree in women's volleyball over time. The Big 12 seems like it's a lot more evenly balanced, and we'll get tested right out the gate, with Baylor and TCU, and seeing some of the other ranked teams in the conference on the road this week. It'll be a really good indicator of what the Big 12 schedule is going to be like, and then we're excited to get them home next week for a nice little stretch of home games as well.
Yeah, you mentioned it kind of being thrown into the fire, if you will, taking on a couple of ranked teams at number 22 TCU on Wednesday night. You can see that on ESPNU at 6 o'clock here in the Valley, and then at number 19 Baylor at 5 p.m. on ESPN Plus coming up over the weekend. So a big-time opportunity. Yeah,
big-time opportunity, and if I can, quick shout-out to our fans. Last weekend, the final non-conference tournament, the Webb Burbridge Classic that we had at Desert Financial Arena. We did an 11 a.m. game on Thursday, which was by design to get a lot of local elementary schools out to the game, and they set the tone for a really productive, exciting weekend. And then Friday night, we had over 1,700 students at Desert Financial Arena to watch volleyball, the 5th largest crowd in program history. A program that dates back over 50 years at this point. So that was exciting that people in the Valley are starting to pay attention to what's been going on the volleyball circuit, and incredible volleyball talent all over the Valley. And now that we're a ranked team and continue to grow the trajectory of this program, keeping the young women in the Valley that compete in the sport, thinking about coming to ASU, it's enormously valuable. So just thank you to our fans for showing up in great numbers, and can't wait to get home for Big 12 next week.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Over 4,100 people there for that Memphis win, and certainly it's not a secret anymore what this program is capable of. Last year, a great surprise. This year, the expectations were there. They're living up to them so far, and an exciting weekend ahead on the volleyball court. Soccer, we're going to be talking to Coach Winkworth in just a moment, but before we talk to Coach, let's hear some praise from you about them. 6-1-3, another really good start. It was a tough schedule to start Big 12 play with 3 straight on the road in 3 different time zones, and they came out of that 1-1-1, a big draw against UCF on Sunday before they came back to the Valley, but another really solid non-conference schedule for another ASU athletic program. Yeah,
really, battle tested going into the Big 12 schedule, immediately tested in the Big 12, as you mentioned, with the 3 road games and kind of spanning the country. And that's the reality of our new conference, is that we are going to be in Orlando. We're not going to be there with great frequency, but when we do, we need to account for that. And so moving from Texas to Florida, coming back home from Florida late on a Sunday, that's where the planning really comes into play in terms of getting in front of it, focusing on nutrition, focusing on rest and recovery, focusing on the academic reality of that schedule. And we're just excited to have them back home this week after a really long extended stretch out the gate.
I know you kind of just touched on it, but that's something that fans have wanted to know, really not just with ASU, but broadly in college athletics now, that travel element, especially for a sport like soccer. How much focus was that for you guys going into this year, knowing that it's going to be much more demanding in terms of the mileage?
Yeah, I think we're going to need a full turn around the schedule in all of our sports to really understand, what the true impact of the different conference schedule is going to be all about. The contrast is we go to Lubbock, and Lubbock is a 90-minute flight from Phoenix. It's shorter than going to the Bay Area. It's certainly a lot shorter than going up to the Pacific Northwest. And so there'll be give and take in that. And I do think when we're in Orlando, West Virginia, Cincinnati is kind of maybe the 3 on the Eastern Seaboard. Again, being mindful of how do we get trainers in the conversation, our academic coaches in the conversation, and make sure that we're just planful as we map out the trip, arrival time, meals and nutrition, academic support, all considerations that we build into the plan.
It's give and take. So if you start with a bunch of games on the road, you're going to have a nice back half. So 6 of the last 8 games in the regular season
weather's
will
getting
be
nicer at home, so there we go.
So it's coming up roses, basically, is what we're saying. In the back half of the schedule, they will play at home for their Big 12 opener on Thursday against West Virginia at 7 p.m., and then Sunday night against Cincinnati at 7 as well. Men's and women's tennis also getting going this week as the women's teams in Cary, North Carolina, men's competing in Charleston. Of course, a couple of storied programs as well, especially the women's side, the men's program getting things going. So a lot of excitement regarding those 2 programs as well.
Yeah, you kind of blink and here we are in the fall with almost a dozen sports underway in varying degrees of their schedule. And so it's just exciting, the amount of energy, and we're in the Carson Student Athlete Center, and so seeing our young athletes kind of in and out of the building and knowing that they're well underway in their seasons or they're about to start, whether it's hockey, basketball, et cetera, the ones that are right around the corner. Just a lot of energy around the building and the department, and we're just excited to keep getting deeper and deeper.
So far, a lot of winning as well.
Yeah, we'll
take
take
it. That's been a constant around this building so far this year. So a lot of excitement. Yep. Don't go anywhere. You'll be back with us for the final segment. And coming up next, we'll hear from ASU soccer coach Graham Winkworth on the Sun Devil Radio Network. Back for segment 2 of Sun Devil Extra. I'm Braiden Bell. We're now joined by the head coach of the ASU women's soccer team, Graham Winkworth. And first off, Coach, thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, very good start to the season for your team. Of course, 3 games already down in Big 12 play, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But 10 games into the season overall, a 6-1-3 record. What are some of the big things you've learned about your team so far through those first 10?
We've got a lot of depth. We've got a lot of quality. It's very difficult. One headache that you almost like having as a coach is team selection, because of the amount of good players that you have, and we've found ourselves in that position quite a few times this season, and it's a nice way to be. But also, very coachable group. We're trying to play a certain way, and you've got to be brave to play that way, and they've been really bought into it, and so it's been exciting.
Oftentimes you hear coaches talk about depth, and it takes a certain level of selflessness from your group. You just mentioned they're coachable, but how much does that mean to you to have a group that will buy into, we have a lot of depth here, not everyone's going to get a ton of minutes? What's that been like for you as a coach?
It's never easy. I mean, you want to play, you've got 29 players, you want to play 29 players every 90 minutes a game, but that's obviously not possible. So it's never easy as a coach to give the playing time out, because you know that you're going to disappoint some people. But we've got some people, we've got a group of girls that put the team before their own. Everybody wants to play, but they put the team first, and we focus on having that team first mentality. And I can really praise the girls in the way that they've handled themselves and maturely handled the adversity of not everybody getting to play.
It's a new era for Sun Devil Athletics, and talk about a welcome into the Big 12, a 3-game road trip for you guys in 3 different time zones, ending in Orlando, Florida over the weekend. It was overall a successful trip for you guys, a win, a draw, and then a loss to BYU, but you made it through with a couple of positive results, like we said. What kind of toughness and focus did that require to really get through that gauntlet of a schedule to start conference play?
Yeah, it was really tough. BYU were the preseason favorites for the league, and so to travel to them away from home opening night was always going to be tough, and I didn't feel like we put a good enough account of ourselves in on that day, not because we lost the game, but because we didn't play ASU soccer that day, and we came away with a 1-0 defeat, but we weren't ourselves that night. And so to go then to come back here and then go to Houston and then on to Orlando, play 2 other good teams, but play in a way that was brave, that was, and I say that by I mean mentally brave, and to be unafraid to make mistakes was really a joy to watch. And we played some really good football in both games. We really controlled the game against Houston, and UCF are one of the preseason favorites also, and to go there and pick up a point was a great result, and we were literally inches away from nicking it in the last 2 minutes as well.
Battling through adversity is something you can learn from going forward. So how do you take that opening trip and, like you said, a tough loss to BYU, but then seeing that bounce back right away against Houston and again against UCF? How do you build on that now going forward?
Well, I think it was fun actually watching the girls train today, because I've got a great staff, so sometimes I take more of a back seat to watch the sessions to see which players are trying to play their way in, and so today was one of those days, and I was really watching carefully. But to see some of the camaraderie within the team was so much fun. There's a lot of what's the word I can use on air? But there's a lot of banter being used between players. A lot of talk going on between the teammates, and it was good, because it really it emphasized the competition within the practice session, but it also demonstrated the sort of closeness that we have within the group. So hopefully that can continue. There was a lot of laughter, and I think players play better when they're having fun, when they're smiling, and there was a lot of smiles in today's session.
Year 8 at the helm for you here in Tempe, back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances and 3 of the last 4 overall. So you've built a very solid program over the course of those 8 years, especially as of late. What's that next step you're looking for this program to take now that you're in a new conference as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've been to the round of 32. So the next step's the Sweet 16, and we've got to firstly qualify for the tournament again. That's going to be the first goal. But beyond that, we would like to be in the Sweet 16, and then once you're there, we'll aim for one game at a time. You know, I just saw some of the girls. That's why I'm waving.
He's a celebrity in here. So.
No, not quite.
Let's move on now.
As far as they're not over here booing me behind the camera.
Well, yeah, I was worried about hecklers, but I think we're fine on that account. Moving into the Big 12, in every single sport, every coach I've talked to, style of plays can differ. Yeah. How have you noticed the style of play on the pitch from the Pac-12 to the Big 12? I know it's only been 3 matches so far, but even in other ones you've watched, is there a difference stylistically?
Yeah, Pac-12 was very, a lot of teams, not all, but a lot of teams would play a lot of possession style with the ball on the ground, with great athletes, but great technical ability as well. Big 12, there's some teams like that as well, but there's a lot more physicality, there's a lot more size, there's a lot of big, tall, athletic players, and so we're not the biggest team, we're not the most athletic team in the Big 12 for sure, but we do try to play a certain style of soccer that is entertaining, that is fun to play in, it is fun to watch. Graham, our athletic director, has spoken on numerous occasions about how he wants to entertain the fans in all sports, and so I'm fortunate that the natural style that I want to coach is an entertaining brand of soccer, and these last couple of games we've really entertained, and so hopefully we can have some fans in our future home matches to really entertain, and then they'll come back.
It's a perfect segue into the next question, because after those 3 on the road, you now have 6 of your final 8 here at home, including 3 in a row and 2 this weekend. You know, how big of an advantage can that be when the Sun Devil Soccer Stadium is packed, filled, there's some student support? How big of a difference does that really make for you guys?
It makes a massive difference. I mean, there were games in the Pac-12, I think about the California game in particular, a year or 2 ago, that we were having to put barricades around the north and south end zones, if that's what you call it, of the stadium, because we filled the stadium, and then we had an overflow, and I'd love to get back to that and having that type of support again, because you know, as motivating as I like to think I am as a coach, when you know half a football team show up, and you know, and there's a group of wrestlers over here, and then there's a fraternity over there, I could be the most motivating guy alive. But when 2,000 other guys show up, they run around a little faster than me.
You're like, what do I need to say?
Well, I don't need to say anything. They run for me.
That's hilarious. Moving on now, and in this day and age in college athletics, it's really become more and more rare to see someone like Lucy Johnson, who's been in your program for 5 years now. She's stayed in Tempe throughout. What's it been like coaching her and seeing her growth over the course of her career?
Oh, it's been awesome. Jono's an absolute sweetheart. She's like 2 different personalities. I don't know if she's got some sort of thing that she can just flick a switch, because off the field she's an absolute great leader, an absolute sweetheart, somebody that's great to talk to, somebody that I mean, when I went through the recruitment process, probably I don't know if I can advertise this or not, but a lot of my English recruiting when I go overseas is done in a pub, and it was no different with Jono. After her game, I met her dad and her little brother sat down with me and my dad and chatted away, and while the 2 dads had a pint, I was chatting with Jono, and she just persuaded her to become a Sun Devil, and just an easygoing sweetheart. When she walks across that white line, she's a nasty little so-and-so. You know, she's got a bite about her. One of my favourite people in Arizona is Don Bocky, and he noticed this on her first day of playing away to Grand Canyon, and she's like, "Oh, who's that? She's nasty," and I like that, and she's got that about her. She's got that grit. She's got that annoying English personality. I can say that because I'm English, but she's got that annoying English personality. She's got a bit of feistiness about her, and she's a good footballer. I'm talking about her attitude, but she's a good footballer on top of that as well. And so yeah, no, great dual personality.
You mentioned recruiting her, but in terms of recruiting in general across the pond in your home country, what's that like for you, and how much fun do you have getting the chance to do that?
Yeah, I'm so blessed to be in a profession. Like, I live in another country to my whole family basically, and if it wasn't for the support that this department provides me, you know, I wouldn't get to see my mum but once every other year, and so I'm so fortunate that I get to go home every year. I see my family. And then I obviously go on vacation as well and take my family to see their grandparents and stuff. But I get to see my parents additional times that would not exist if it wasn't for this blessed opportunity that I have. So it's amazing, and it just helps that I'm able to find some really top English girls while I'm there, because otherwise they wouldn't want me to go back. But Jono's a great example of why I'm allowed to go back.
Yeah, that's a great example that allows it to keep going without
right.
a doubt. We were just talking off air. You're getting close to 250 wins over the course of
I
your
learned that the other day, yeah.
collegiate career, right?
I must be getting old.
Well, let's talk about way back when you first started coaching. You were 16 years old. You were still in England with Preston North End Football Club.
Yeah.
If you could go back now and talk to 16-year-old Coach Winkworth, what would you tell him the journey's going to be like?
Stressful. No, I mean, I would say I spent so much time thinking about the X's and O's as a young coach, which was really important. I like to pride myself on tactical knowledge, etc. That's one of the things that I really enjoy. But you know, I spent a lot more time, especially since I've been at Arizona State, focused on the relationships within the players as well. It was easy. It's always easy to build strong bonds with your best players, because you know they're the ones that are happy. They're the ones that that are playing for you week in, week out. And you can, you know, Jono, for example, it's easy to build a bond with because she knows that she's going to start on Thursday night. But I've spent a lot more time trying to focus on the whole picture and realised, you know, with my old age, how important every player is on the roster, not just the ones that are starting. And we're very fortunate to have a deep but great group of girls that from 1 to 29. They're all incredible girls, and sometimes I don't tell them enough, but I love them to bits. And you know, we do really care about them as from a relationship standpoint as well.
You're also not old. You have plenty more wins.
Yeah, I hope so. On a double what we got.
There you go.
I've got time.
You've got plenty of time. And I guess kind of ending on this note, you have been a consistent winner in college. You know, since you've made 3 stops now, you've been a consistent winner at all 3 stops. What are some of those main foundational pillars that you've tried to build that program on? I know you kind of just alluded to changing your style up a little bit here in Tempe over the last 8 years, but what are some of those main core principles you like to found your program on?
Well, good players make good coaches. You know, you can't win without good players. That's important. So recruitment is a key function. The relationship piece is a key function. One of my favourite memory as a head coach, my best season ever as a head coach, no matter if I was to win a national championship this fall, this 2013 would outdo any of it, because in 2013 I lost my daughter. My team came together for me, and we won. We were ranked 247th in the country before we got to that job. 3 years later, we're number 16. We were supposed to finish 7th in our league that year. We finished 2nd. They'd never won a conference tournament playoff. We won the conference tournament, went to the NCAAs. I had incredible support from an incredible man, Dr. Joel Urban, my AD at the time, and nothing will surpass that one. So, but it was all built around my staff and my players coming around me through my moment of adversity, personal adversity, and if it wasn't for those young ladies, we wouldn't have had that sort of success. So relationships do mean the world to me. And I've been really fortunate to work with some wonderful girls over the years, and staff as well, and some of my best friends are former coaches and of mine. And so just relationships, but then and recruiting. You know, recruiting good players, but recruiting good people.
That's part of the reason why sports can be great. They can unify through difficult times. Falling in love with the game, I'm assuming it was at an early age for you.
Yeah, 1986.
Okay.
Diego Maradona cheated England out of the quarterfinals of the World Cup. I'm not bitter. Right?
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, you know, as a 6 or 7 year old boy, that was my first memory. And after we lost in that game to Argentina, Peter Shilton was the goalkeeper for England. He joined Derby County, which is why I'm a Derby County supporter. I needed a team to pick, and I don't tend to pick the glory boys. I tend to pick, you know, an underdog, and Shilton joined Derby, so that's why my daughter was named Derby as well. So, yeah, big. That's my first memory. Peter Shilton nearly saving England.
They were cheated, but
we were cheated.
He's not bitter.
No, not at all.
He's not bitter. Remember that. I didn't even need to ask you the question. I was going to say your first memory, but he knew it right away and he ran with it. Coach, we're getting ready to talk to Lucy, and certainly a great season for you guys so far, and we wish you nothing but the best in the future as well. Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We'll be right back on the Sun Devil Radio Network, presented by Mountain America Credit Union. Welcome back to Sun Devil Extra as we stick with the soccer theme on today's show. We're now joined by 5th-year player Lucy Johnson out of Nottingham, England. And a good start for the Sun Devil women's soccer team so far this year, and certainly we've mentioned the road games. You just got done with 3 in a row in Big 12 play, but now you get the advantage of playing 6 of your final 8 in the regular season at home. So that is obviously a huge benefit. But how big of an advantage can that be, playing here in Tempe in front of Sun Devil Nation and not having to travel so much in the back half?
I mean, definitely the games we just had on the road were tough, but we picked up good points. I think it really helps, being back here helps our recovery and stuff like that, especially when between the Thursday and Sunday games. So that's a definite benefit for us.
You've been a part of this program for 5 years now, so you've seen plenty over the course of your career, and certainly you hear this in sports all the time, adversity can teach you a lot in life, in sports, everything. You've had to battle through some injuries over the course of your career. What are some of the biggest things you've learned from getting through those injuries and ultimately staying healthy now, hopefully, knock on wood, through your final season?
I mean, the last year was really tough. I had to work really hard to be able to get on the pitch and play like so many minutes back now this season, but I'm really lucky here that we have a really good medical team that really helped me last spring and last fall as well. So we sort of broke it down and looked what was going wrong and sort of went back to the start and back to basics. And then they've been really helpful with me, like managing my body, like the coaches as well have managed my body well in terms of pre-season when we maybe have higher load. That's been really helpful. They've managed my minutes there. And like just a sense of like the importance of recovery is massive. Like I've learned that a lot over the past year. I've probably had to learn the hard way, but also my nutrition, my sleep, recovery, everything, like stretching. It's a whole rounded piece. So that's what I've had to come to learn.
I'm glad you mentioned all those things because I think at times casual fans might not realize just how much goes into it. So let's go back to the rehab process. You said it was really hard work. What was your typical day like?
So mostly every day I'd just be working with the athletic trainers. I also had a specialist over at Mayo, like her name's Julie. She was really good for me. I'd be doing a lot of strength work and stuff like that. Well, it started off actually, I started doing I had a quad injury sort of last spring, which put me out for a long time. And I had like injections and stuff to help get that better and sort of the blood flow back there. But it was a lot of strength work and a lot of mobility work was my main priority and focusing on that, and then building up load gradually so my body could like deal with the change, if that makes sense. But the medical team were brilliant. Like I was working with them every day and it's really helped, and I still check in with them all the time, and I'm fortunately in a position where I feel really good and confident in my body now.
Yeah, that's a great thing. So that's the physical aspect. Mentally though, what was it like mentally? Because you obviously want to be out there with your teammates.
Yeah, so I've had like quite a few different sort of injuries over the past year and a half, and like to be honest, each one was sort of like a knockdown and like mentally pretty challenging, but I just said, look, I have nothing to lose. If I put in the work, then I'll get the rewards for it. I just have to keep grinding it out. And like every time I get a setback, it'd be really tough. But also I think that's why like we have such a great team and such a great support group, that girls that are injured now currently, hopefully even all of the healthy girls and injured girls are there as a support system for them. Coaches too have been brilliant, rehab team brilliant. So yeah, that's really helped.
Leaning on your team.
Yeah, exactly.
That's obviously important.
That's been mentally like, that was the hardest piece, but they made it easier. Yeah.
Let's go back to when you first arrived in Arizona. So 5 years ago, and coming here from England, like we've talked about, being from the UK.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of Arizona? Then maybe some things you had to kind of get used to. We'll leave the weather out of it because that'd be an obvious one.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But outside of that, what adjustments did you really have to get used to?
So like the university system's kind of different here, so that was something I had to adjust with. Like, and academic advisors help with that, definitely. So that was definitely something to adjust to, because university in England is a bit of a different system where like your degree, what you've chosen as your major as such, is your only sort of focus in classes. Here it's a little bit different. So adjusting to that was kind of difficult, but I think like the academic advisor, John, we have for our team, Jonathan Irwin, made that easy for me. So
outside of the classroom and outside of your sport, we got to ask, like, society-wise, what's a guilty pleasure? We'll say fast food. What kind of food do you love in America?
I like Chipotle. We don't have that in the UK. So
a bowl or a burrito?
Bowl, always a bowl.
Good call.
Yeah,
Queso?
No, guac? I don't get queso. I get guac.
Okay, me too.
Guac.
Me too. We can agree on that.
Nice.
Maybe we'll go after this.
Nice.
We'll stay on that same kind of question, European to American in terms of football, stylistically,
Yeah.
the games are different. I mean, you can see
Yeah.
that if you just watch the Euros
Yeah.
compared to Copa.
Definitely, yeah.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
What would you say are the biggest differences between American and European football?
I would say a lot of the American girls over here are really good physically. Like they're often, like when I first came over here, I found they were a lot fitter, faster and stronger. Maybe because there's more of an emphasis over here on strength and conditioning, and the facilities here are unbelievable for all colleges. Maybe that's the case, but that's what I found coming over, and I do feel like I've definitely got stronger and faster and fitter. Like, so hopefully that's an element that's added to my game from coming over here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take you again off the pitch for a moment, but you're getting ready for a big game. We
Yeah.
know you're a lover of music, so give
Yeah,
me a
yeah.
couple of, you're never going to skip these songs. What are you
Oh,
listening to
okay.
before a big game?
Before a game, it's kind of different because I have to accommodate for the group a little bit.
Oh,
Like,
are you the DJ?
I am, yeah. The
That's a
girls,
big job.
yeah, the girls are gonna give me some grief. I am the DJ, yeah. But like, we'll listen to a lot of different stuff, like rap and stuff. But when I'm on my own and like I'm just chill, like there's an artist from home I really like called Olivia Dean.
Okay.
Who has some like really nice music, yeah.
So a little more chill if it's
Yeah,
just you
yeah.
then?
Yeah, exactly.
But you
yeah.
got to play to the crowd.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
understand
I
that.
have to, yeah. unfortunately.
Let's talk about being a defender, and it's got to be such a thrill when you do score a goal. You've scored
Yeah.
3 in your Sun Devil career, and your first
Yeah.
ever one was in the NCAA tournament, so
Yeah.
that's pretty big time. Are we going to see another goal
I
potentially?
hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something I really want to like. Goals and assists, like, is something I actually want to add to my game, especially assists. So I really want to score this season, and I really want to add more assists. So yeah,
Yeah. What was that rush like, scoring your first ever goal in an NCAA tournament game?
it is pretty crazy, to be honest. Like, I think I'd just come back from like an ankle injury or something, and like I was just buzzing to even like be back on the pitch, to be honest. But yeah, it was nice, and like it was cool that it was all the way in. Was it North Carolina?
Right,
Yeah,
yes,
North
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
God, that's a while ago. But yeah, it was good fun. Yeah.
So let's talk about after this season's over, hopefully a deep postseason run coming up
Yeah.
for your team and a very good start, as we said. But
Yeah.
what are some of those goals for you post-graduation, continuing to play, and then beyond
Yeah.
your playing career as well?
Yeah, so I'd really like to go back home and play somewhere in Europe. That's sort of always been a dream of mine, so I can be closer to family, but also play professional soccer. That's what I want to do. And then hopefully, like when I'm done with that and sort of settling down back in the UK, I want to maybe work in the criminal justice system, as that's what my major's in. But first, soccer. Like, I love soccer, and I really want to pursue a career professionally.
That's fantastic, and certainly a very impressive career here at ASU
Thank
for
you.
you. And you're not done yet. As we mentioned, 8 regular season games to go, and then hopefully some postseason play as well. Lucy Johnson, best of luck
Thank
going
you.
forward, and certainly thank you for joining us here.
Thanks very much.
We'll be joined with Graham Rossini and wrap things up when we come back. Back again with Arizona State Athletic Director Graham Rossini. I'm Braiden Bell, and this is Sun Devil Extra, presented by Spring Hill Suites, Phoenix, Scottsdale. And Graham, football off this week, like we said, but obviously a lot to look forward to, including 2 big home games coming up on the schedule. Tickets are still available. The Kansas game, October 5th, 5 p.m. kickoffs, a little earlier. Family friendly, and temperatures starting to go down a little bit, so that should be helpful. And then a 7:30 kickoff against Utah the following Friday, so the 11th of October, and you can still purchase tickets online at sundevils.com/tickets. But let's focus on the Kansas game for a minute coming up.
Yep.
Not the X and O's, but really an exciting weekend. The Hall of Fame coming up next weekend, and also just some big events regarding that game as well.
Sure. Well, and a call to action. We're close to selling this game out as well, and so can't think of a better way to begin the home Big 12 schedule than with the sellout. It's all obviously family weekend throughout ASU, and so our student sections have been incredible out the gate, really setting the tone, and now having a great student sections with a lot of family members joining them. It should be a really fun atmosphere, and as you mentioned, a 5 o'clock game. Hopefully we're out of the 110s.
We're willing it into
We're
existence.
willing it in, manifest
Yes.
destiny, it's going to happen, but the best time of year is in front of us, and next weekend is a good indicator of a busy October to come.
Yeah, and certainly Coach Dillingham mentioned this the other day too. It's a wide open Big 12, and that those atmosphere and the fans really do matter a lot. So if you do not have tickets yet, make sure you do that. You have a little bit of time still, but it's going to sneak up on us, so be sure to buy those tickets. But certainly it will be a lot of fun. Commissioner Yormark will be on campus for the first time, watching a ball game, I should say, and so that will be really special. What other big things are happening over that Kansas weekend?
Yeah, so the Big 12 is making a great effort being on campus next weekend as part of the Kansas, the first home game, as we mentioned, and we've got a number of community service planned next week, and the conference has made an investment into some local charities and organizations. We're going to get involved in some elementary schools with a book drive and investing in some media libraries, and so that's a really good benefit of this conference, seeing value in not only ASU but Tempe and the Valley metropolitan area at large. We're going to add some tailgates next weekend with some live music and some DJs that the Big 12 is bringing out. The commissioner is here, as you mentioned, and so just a lot of celebration as we enter this new chapter in earnest. And so that'll be a fun part of the game day on Saturday, and then obviously that Friday before with our annual Hall of Fame celebration. A big moment, one of the big annual celebrations. We talked a lot about the spirit, pride, and tradition that's so unique to ASU, and a chance to recognize your Hall of Famers is as good as it gets.
I know sometimes those of us in media work in superlatives, but this really is a historic weekend, or it will be. First ever Big 12 home football game, and it should be really fun. Making it an event, not just a game, and I think that's obviously the goal for you guys every single football weekend.
Yeah, and I think it's always important to honor your legends, and we're in this incredible space in the the lobby of the Carson Center, the Schaefer Family Hall of Fame, and this goes back to the mid '70s, and guys like Reggie Jackson, who are part of the charter class, football, baseball guy, and then having somebody like Will Sutton go in next week, obviously successful as a Sun Devil, was incredible in the NFL, and getting a chance to bring Will back to campus and recognize him. A guy like John Speeney, that I had a chance to watch him as a young professional lead our gymnastics program and have generations of success, but also generations of relationships. And for Coach Speeney and a lot of his student athletes to stay close to our program is incredible. I'm really excited about a guy like Roger Detter, who's going in the Hall of Fame, and so he was a national champion in baseball, shortstop captain on 2 College World Series teams. Found time to be on the basketball team, and I think still holds the most free throw percentage record, and then somehow had time to be a track and field athlete as well. And so, Roger, well-deserving as a 3-sport athlete, a decorated graduate as well, and somebody that stayed very close to the department over the years. And so this is the fun part of the job, is getting a chance to celebrate the success in a number of our sports. And we've got a diver coming back from Italy. We've got some golfers as well that we're recognizing, and so really incredible class that we'll recognize in front of fans at Old Main, and looking forward to that to being a big part of a backdrop next week. Yeah, it will be really cool, and just a little bit of a plug, that'll be basically the storyline of our show next week as well, so you'll hear plenty more about the Hall of Fame inductees next week on this very program. Let's go back to last Saturday one more time. Not really the game, but the experience, being a Big 12 member, being at Texas Tech, and kind of getting brought into the conference, if you will, for the first time. I know they rolled out the red carpet, if you will, Texas hospitality, but what was that experience like for you to kind of fully, officially get your feet wet in the conference? Yeah, it was good to get underway. I feel like we've been talking and preparing for forever. It's been a busy year and a half kind of going through the transition, and to finally be in a Big 12 stadium, knowing that the new conference schedule is underway, just a lot of appreciation for Texas Tech in terms of the hospitality, rolling out the red carpet, making us feel immediately welcome. They presented us with a game ball before the game to commemorate the first ASU game in the Big 12, and their athletic director, Kirby Hokut, is enormously well respected in the industry. He's made a great effort to build a relationship with me and be helpful as a young athletic director, and so just forever thankful for Kirby investing that time in. And so I got a neat personal kick out of Texas Tech being the first school that we visited, just based on how Kirby's been an enormous help for me throughout this transition. And I was really excited to see the number of fans that traveled in Lubbock. And so we saw both in San Marcos the week before, then going into Lubbock, just a great number of ASU fans that were with us. And so, taking advantage of the time in Texas, getting the reality of we're in the Big 12 officially, and it's exciting times. I know you talked about it in the first segment, but it is important. I mean, that's a short trip. So in the future, that is a game that ASU fans can easily make that short little flight on. Yeah. Wouldn't probably recommend that drive going through some of the areas of New Mexico. We had some folks drive, and they said, "Hey, not too bad. Okay, straight shot, pretty uneventful drive, just point east and I might just be dramatic. There you go. I might just be dramatic, but regardless, it's not that far away. So a very fan-friendly place to visit to watch the Devils play in the future, regardless of what sport. I ask you this every week, and we'll end with this one today. What are some of those things you're looking forward to this week? Of course, like we said, soccer being at home, volleyball on the road with a couple of big ones. What do you kind of have circled on your schedule? Yeah, I just think the fact that we're turning the calendar into October here soon, and again, the best part of the year for the Valley is in front of us. We've got hockey getting going in a couple of weeks, men's and women's basketball right behind them, and again, so much excitement in so many of our programs. And when you look up and you're in October and you've got football well underway, soccer and volleyball competing in the conference, golf, tennis, track and field, cross country, Triathlon is underway. There's just a lot of excitement, and then you get into that next layer of hockey. We've sold out season tickets at Mullet Arena. Men's basketball and the excitement for these incoming recruiting class, women's basketball, and a healthy team that's got some local talent like Kennedy Basham on the roster. Just really good days in front of us, and so we're trying to be present. We're trying to make good decisions. We're also excited about more and more activity and chances for Sun Devil fans to get here with us on campus.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's been a really good start, like we said, a lot of success on the playing fields or the courts or whatever we're talking about in terms of the environments. It's been a lot of W's so far for Sun Devil Athletics, and a very busy weekend ahead with conference play in full swing. So a big thank you again to Coach Winkworth along with Lucy Johnson and Graham Rossini. I'm Braiden Bell saying so long, and we'll talk to you again next week.